what is Afterpay?
Afterpay is the old school lay-by without the delayed gratification. Because with lay-by, you'd plan the purchase and you'd keep going back over 2 months or 3 months and make the little payments, and then you get this thing, the object. However, now we don't want to wait. So we say, give me the thing and I'll pay you back. It is ruining people's credit files
Why is
because
that?
it's actually a credit inquiry on your file. It is a credit facility because you've taken the object prior to having paid for it. So it's a credit facility.
Oh.
I see countless people who declare to me, I've got one credit card and a car loan, and then when I look at their credit files, they've actually got 3 and 4 Afterpay and ZipPay and similar facilities. I know Latitude does one and Apple Pay does one. And now the banks start asking questions because you've got undeclared debt, and they don't understand that it is a debt.
So for someone like me who actually doesn't Afterpay, I understand lay-by. I understand lay-by. Lay-by was exactly that. You know, you'd buy something quite expensive, leave it at the store, pay it off, and then you collect it once you've paid everything off. Now what you're saying is Afterpay is us about. So you actually get the good, and then you pay it off over time. So that act itself creates a credit, a mark on your credit file.
Correct. It's like asking for the credit card.
Am I paying interest on the payments though?
They say no, but
Okay.
we all know that the price is elevated.
Okay, all right.
Because there's no such thing as a free lunch is still true.
Yeah.
The company that creates that provides the credit isn't going to do this for free,
Yeah.
and neither is the provider of the goods going to take a cut on it. So you pay for it. Whereas if you lay-byed it in the old way, you had your price, it was divided by however many weeks or months, and you'd go and pay it.
So built into the payment plan that they give you is the actual interest or the charge for having the service.
It has to be,
Yeah.
because it's a business. No business is going to do this for free.
Because the reason I'm asking is, as I said, financial planner, but I deal with a lot of young people who have got a lot of Afterpay. And it seems to be the way that they're buying things now. Even though they've got the money, they will just put it on Afterpay because it's already set up. But the other interesting thing I noticed is that ASIC is now looking at this whole thing. ASIC is the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, are looking at this whole Afterpay idea and all the Afterpay businesses and saying, well, hang on, should these guys be more regulated? Because effectively they're extending credit.
Correct.
And that came alongside another article that came out the same week that said that 25% of people who are actually using Afterpay regularly are skipping meals because they can't afford the Afterpay.
Yeah.
So it's now being reviewed as a credit facility. What do you think the impact's going to be on people who actually want to borrow for business or borrow for a house if they've got all this Afterpay going on?
Well, number one, there's a shock when they realise that it is actually a credit facility. They don't seem to think about it in that way. And of course, it being a limit, it drops your borrowing capacity. So if you don't think that you have $10,000 and $15,000 and $20,000 worth of debt, because these days you can actually Afterpay your overseas holiday.
Wow.
Not that we're travelling much at the
No,
moment,
but still.
that facility is available. You don't even have to pay for a holiday before you go. So all of a sudden, you come to the realisation that you've actually got debt that you didn't know, and now you've got to come to terms with the fact that you can borrow less money. I don't know if it's the terms and conditions that aren't explaining it properly, but people don't seem to realise. Now we also have to explain extra credit inquiries, because there are a number of credit inquiries that are deemed acceptable, and then people start thinking, why do you require this much credit? And I think in some cases, banks being risk averse, if there are a number of inquiries, there can be the assumption that you must have been declined for the first 4 and then took the fifth one. But also, the reason why I started doing credit checks with everyone's authority, or authorisation I should say, all my clients' credit files I get looked at, because if we do an application and there's undeclared debt, now it looks really bad.
Yeah.
So there's so much education needed around Afterpay and ZipPay and those sorts of pay later facilities. And credit cards have been looked at already,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of scrutiny, and things are having to be pulled into line. And I think it's absolutely necessary that they do that for these facilities as well.
I think also the conversation's got to be around what is a credit score, because that's a relatively new concept now. People don't even understand that there is a credit score
Mhm.
system that's been in place for how long? How long has it been in for?
A number of years, but
Yeah.
the big revamp happened July a year ago or so, where there's so much more information being reported now.
Yeah.
It's not just, do you have a facility? It's, have you paid late, 1 day late, 3 days late, 2 weeks late, is anything in arrears long term, have you defaulted? It's not just those major events anymore.
Yeah.
So missing a payment every now and then and thinking it's okay all of a sudden isn't okay, because there's a record there.
Wow. So I mean, this is such a different shift, because now we're actually looking at consumer behaviour and
Absolutely.
consumer credit behaviour. And you mentioned, people who are paying late occasionally, whether it's an accident or something that's sort of habitual.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to count against you now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know lots of people who think it's okay to just pay 2 days late because I get the extra 2 days of money in my account, not them, and they just pay traditionally 2 days late. But now when you look on the score, and there are 12 little months that are being reported, there's a cross and a cross and a cross and a cross and a cross. Now it takes a lot of explaining.
Wow.
A lot of explaining.
So how was the pandemic and this really odd year that we've had, the last 9 months, where to a certain extent all the financial institutions were relaxing payment arrangements and things like that? Is that going to impact our credit scores across the board negatively, or?
It absolutely has an impact, because you need to show 3 to 6 months worth of statements, and if you haven't made repayments, that needs to be explained. Some lenders won't actually look at it if you've been on repayment, because you need to be able to prove that you've satisfactorily come out of this essential event that caused you to not be able to pay. You need to show that you're back on your feet, so that's delaying things for
Yeah.
people in their lending as well. But coming back to the afterpay thing as well, people have been spending so much time online shopping that I think that, in the next 3 and 6 months, we are going to see a lot of heartache, because
Wow.
people, I don't think, necessarily have realised what impact this is going to have.
So I think it's probably time for our conversations to start moving towards those basic things like budgeting and
Absolutely.
being disciplined around credit, or even how to be disciplined around credit. That it isn't money that you don't pay back. It's not gifts. It's
Correct.
literally loans.
It's not a loan from mum and dad.
Yeah.
There's a cost associated with that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering those questions, Lana.
No problem. Anytime.